Yo, YouTube, Mr. T here, and this is the last time actually I'll be introducing myself as Mr. T because after this, after I make this video, I'm gonna make the changes to the channel I said in the previous video I would do, and I explained there why I would do this. So from now on, I'll be Joe's second opinion. So actually, let's redo this intro so that people have the correct name. Yo, YouTube, your second opinion here, and today we're going to be reacting to a video that 5 seconds ago came onto my For You page. It was this video titled Belgium Explained, and I was particularly intrigued because on the thumbnail you had the Flanders, Walloon, and Brussels divided, which is correct by the way, but with Brussels there was a German flag, so I wondered how correct is this? So I'm gonna just put my headset on top of my head, crank the volume.
Alright, let's get into it.
Let's see.
But first, let's ascertain. Belgium isn't all food, sweets, and sugar. Yes, I'm talking about waffles and chocolate. It's also a country with a very complex structure. It's the birthplace of French fries.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that is another food. It's the birthplace of the Smurfs, and it's home to the smallest city in the world. And no, it's not the Smurf village. Let us present the country of the Belgian Red Devils, music festivals, and an insane amount of different kinds of beer, high taxes, and a peeing boy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Belgium.
Yeah.
First, let's get ourselves a real quick overview of Belgium. Anthem. With its 30,528 square kilometers, this is one of the smallest countries Europe has, ranking in at the 34th place out of the 51 countries located in Europe. Geographically, it sits with Luxembourg and Germany on the east side, Netherlands on the north side, and France on the south. And let's just say that this country has some
and in school, we actually learned that one of our other neighbors is England. So we learned that England is one of our neighbors, even though there is a sea in between.
Serious influences from these countries. In fact, Belgium doesn't have its own language per se, but instead they have 3 official languages, being Dutch, French, and German.
Yeah, so that has a specific reason. So you need to dive into history for this. But Belgium, when it gained its independence from the Austrians, just before that, it was all throughout history was divided between the Dutch kingdom to the north until the border with Flanders and Walloon, and the kingdom of France to the south. And just after I think it was the 7 Years' War, the Austrians took the Habsburg. No, it was during the colonization of America. The Habsburgs took Belgium, and then when it split, it became Spanish Habsburg, and then it became Austrian Habsburg, and then it became Belgium. That's why. And the German part we actually gained after World War I. We took a tiny piece of Germany, and that's now the German-speaking part of Belgium.
Population ranks in at just above 11.5 million, and with that, it's considered one of the most heavily populated countries in Europe. The biggest cities of the country are by order: Brussels, which is about twice the size in terms of population as the runner-up Antwerpen. After that, we have Ghent, Charleroi, and then in 5th place, Liege. And do you
Yeah, so the pronunciation is a bit weird. It's Brussel, Antwerpen, Ghent, Charleroi, and Liège of Luik. So Charleroi is actually a very special thing because it's a big city, because it was like very industrial. But now if you go there now, it's like a ruin. It's hilarious. It's disgusting, and it reeks of crime. And it's actually one of the ugliest. It was pronounced the ugliest city in Europe in 2024, I think.
Remember when I said Belgium has influences from the Dutch, French, and German language? Well, pretty much every city in this country has multiple names, totally based on the person's preference of language. So, for example, Brussels is Brussel, is Bruxelles. Now that's pretty cool and very confusing.
And it actually came, that's a fun fact by the way, Bruxelles is the French name for Broekzele. And Broekzele is actually the original name of Brussels. But because the hierarchy in Belgium in the 1800s was French and then Dutch, every Dutch person wanted to pronounce Bruxelles as the French did, Bruxelles. And so they started calling it Brussels. That's why it's now called Brussels. So that's a fun fact. Actually, the original name wasn't even Brussels or Bruxelles.
If you're trying to get around the city with a GPS, and trust me, I've tried. While we're on the subject of differences, let's dive into how this country is structured because it's really interesting. So, the first article of the Belgian Constitution reads, Belgium is a federal state composed of communities and regions. And this sums it up pretty good, but what does it mean? Well, first, we have the communities. And without jumping into history too much, when the power of the country was redistributed, it occurred along two lines. The first was related to language, or to be specific, to culture. The result of this was that several communities were created. Today, Belgium has three different communities, being the Flemish community, the French community, and the German-speaking community. Then there's the regions. These are the second line, and were created mostly from economic interests. There are three regions, named the Flemish region, the Walloon region, and the Brussels capital region. The different regions work sort of like an American state, with its own executive organs. And finally, there's the federal state. Its prime focus is to cover everything connected with public interests, stuff that's of general interest for all Belgians, such as national security, foreign affairs, and public health. The federal government also covers everything not covered by the different communities and regions, although it still has powers for exemptions and restrictions on these. And if this wasn't enough for you, the country is further divided into 10 provinces and 581 municipal councils. Oh, and they have a king and queen, because why not, right?
Flipper. Yes, so our king is called King Flip, and King Philip, the Philip the First. But his nickname sorta is Flipper, and the queen is Matilda.
Right? But as most countries nowadays, the primary role of this monarchy is to be a symbol of the nation.
Yes,
Currency-wise, Belgium uses the euro, which is probably understandable since the currency is the official currency of the European Union, and its headquarters is located in, Brussels.
Brussels.
Oh,
Yeah, Brussels is not only the capital of Belgium, it's actually also the capital of Europe. That's why the European Committee is in Brussels. The European headquarters is in Brussels. So that's actually a fun fact. And we actually have a whole road in Brussels completely dedicated to the European Union.
and the euro's famous E-type symbol was created by a Belgian guy named Alain Billiet. The Belgian flag consists of three equal vertical bands of black, yellow, and red. The colors of the flag were taken from the flag of Brabant, which was a province in what was called the Low Countries, a place we mentioned further in our Netherlands episode. But yeah, flags are all
Yeah, first actually the Belgian flag, and this is also again a fun fact. The Belgian flag first were allowed to choose how you would fly it, vertically or horizontally. It was only when Germany united and chose sort of the same colors, but then instead of yellow, white, we decided our flag is horizontal and our flag is vertical and their flag is horizontal. So actually, before the unification of Germany, you could actually choose how you would fly the Belgian flag, but most people would still fly them vertically. So that's why we chose vertically.
old stuff. So let's jump into our history segment. Okay, guys,
Best
let me
segment
take
of them
you
all.
back to a time where the area that we call today Belgium instead were called the Low Countries. Here, on a fertile
Lage Landen.
plateau near Liga, lived a group of people called Omalians. They were farmers and were experimenting with agriculture and the use of various metals, but one day they disappeared, leaving only their black decorated pottery behind. Jumping a bit in time, other people started to move into the area. The most known were of Spanish origin. They ate cooked meat, farmed their land, and traded with other tribes, just living their best lives. But everything good usually comes to an end. A Celtic people called the Belgi, sound familiar, moved across the Rhine, all the way to England, invading everything. And they did this very well thanks to a new weapon they discovered, the Iron Sword. Belgies were a very frightening people, and they were widely known for their fighting skills and warrior mindset. So they ruled Northern Gaul for a long time, all up until one man came along, Julius Caesar. Most of us have heard of this guy, and he was indeed no joke, but let me tell you this. He had trouble overcoming these Belgians as they put up a serious fight against his Roman Empire. And perhaps you think you've heard this story before. And you're right to think so. If you have ever watched the cartoon Asterix and Obelix, then you know this stuff, as there's a lot of Roman versus Belgians fights in that one. However, Caesar was victorious in the end, and the area
He actually wrote in his diary, "The Belgi and the Gallicus were the hardest people that I ever conquered in my life." And in Belgium, you hear this constantly. We're actually very proud of it that Caesar couldn't just conquer us like he conquered all the rest.
became part of the Roman Empire for over 4 centuries. Eventually, the Franks slowly moved their way into the area, cooperating with the Romans. They settled down in the area of today's Flanders, and it was at this time the division between the Flemish and the Walloons really originated. Taking another leap in time, to somewhere around 742, most likely near Liga, a boy was born. He got the name Charlemagne, and he grew up to be the ruler of all of Francia, and one of the most important figures in European history. He united most of Western Europe and played a vital role in the spread of Christianity across Europe. Between the years 1339 and 1341, a severe plague killed huge numbers of people, and the survivors often turned to superstitious religion, some of which is a distant base for several odd Belgian folkloric parades such as La Doudou. Now, let's speed things up a little, shall we? We have a really important guy named Philip the Good, who was the real founder of the Burgundian state, the place Belgium got
Philippe
its
de
flag
Goede.
colors from, remember? Then, in the 1500s, in the city of Ghent, Charles V was born. He later became one of the most powerful rulers in European history, being both the
Spanish
Spanish
guy.
emperor as well as the Holy Roman Emperor. In 1562, these guys, Egmont and Urne, didn't like the Spanish involvement in the Netherlands and obviously got executed for it. But in 1566, after a few decades of fighting with Spain, the Dutch revolts happened, and the Netherlands revolted against them to have their independence. 1713, after decades of war with France, a Europe-wide peace deal splits the Spanish Empire, and with that, its southern provinces, today's Belgium, were given to the Austrian Empire, and given the name Austrian Netherlands. Following the French Revolution, France invaded the place, and as a result, the Austrian Netherlands became part of Napoleon's empire. 1815 is a very famous year in history, as it marks the end of Napoleon's military career, as he was finally defeated at the Battle of Waterloo in the city with the same name, just outside of Brussels. Legend has it, Napoleon rode away from the battle in tears. 15 years later marks a point in time very special to the Belgians, as this is when they
Belgian
revolted
Revolution.
against Dutch rule and became independent. On October 4th, 1830, Belgium was born. The following year, they adopted a constitution, which for its time was very progressive. Then there's this guy, Leopold II, and his personal purchase of a big piece of land in Africa, which was named Belgian Congo. There's been numerous speculations of how the local population of the time was treated, and then history parts ways here. But it's safe to say that there was abuse to the local population.
Yeah, we're not proud of this. That's something very bad. So we're not going to talk about it. Oops.
As this was the case in pretty much every place colonized by European or American countries at the time. Here comes World War I, with everything attached to it. Belgium stayed neutral throughout the war, but got invaded by Germany anyway. However, the
And the Germans actually should have also invaded the Netherlands, because the Schlieffen said invade all Low Countries and then take Paris quickly. But because they only invaded Belgium and Luxembourg, they got slowed down, and that's why Belgium was actually never conquered. They held on a peace on the coast called the Yser, where they flooded German troops and started a 100 days offensive together with the British and the French. And actually, also something to be mentioned right here. First of all, this map is wrong because South Tyrol is not from Austria-Hungary, also something. But the Netherlands, we actually have the right to take a piece of land from the Netherlands because Great Britain, France, and the Netherlands together promised to protect Belgium's neutrality in a treaty later, a bit earlier, a treaty, and which stated that if the Netherlands didn't protect Belgium, they should give their province of Limburg, and if the Great Britain or France didn't protect them, they need to get money, which is actually one of the only Great Britain joined World War One is because Belgian neutrality was invaded, and else probably the Germans would have won.
Germans did not expect such resistance from the country, as it held its ground very well, something they received enormous international prestige for when the war was over. In 1940, during World War II, Belgium was invaded
Invaded again.
making it one of few European countries invaded twice. The final push of the Germans, known as the Battle of the Bulge, went down in the forest region of Ardennes, on the border of Belgium and France. And this battle is known as Hitler's last major offensive against the Western Front in the war. In 1960, independence was granted to the Belgian Congo after major anti colonial demonstrations. And 14 years later, the one and only Belgian cycling champion, Eddy Merckx, wins the Tour de France for the fifth time. And to sum this up, in 1993, Belgium became a three-part federal state with the regions we mentioned earlier. Now Belgium ranks among the highest in the world when it comes to GDP, as well as life expectancy, access to medicine, education, and overall living standard.
Yeah, medicine and education are completely free. You pay taxes for them, but when you pay taxes, that's also something you probably is gonna get into. When you pay taxes, they are very high, but you get free healthcare, free education, and if you lose your job, you get a large paycheck. If you don't want to work, you get a large paycheck. You have high living standards, you get a free home if you can afford, you get free food. So it's actually, you pay your taxes, but you get a lot of return in return if you need it.
Oh, and they have waffles. Okay, so enough with the seriousness and all this history talk. You know what time it is, people. Time for the fun facts.
Yeah.
There were about 1 million facts we wanted to include in the segment,
If there is a fun fact I know that isn't included, I will tell it later.
but that would have been pretty lengthy for a video. So we either had to do this in
10 times extra speed lightning mode.
or just choose a few of them. So here's a few. The French fry story. Okay, so there's a dispute over the origin of the French fry. The most
There is
popular
not.
one, however, is probably the one where the villagers along the River Meuse invented it. Usually they ate fried fish. However, during the winters, the river
The river is called Maas, but okay.
froze, so instead they fried potatoes. The dish was later discovered by American soldiers during World War I, and since the language of southern Belgium is mostly French, they named the dish French fries. The national symbol of Belgium is a peeing boy, the mannequin pis, which translates to something like small guy peeing, is a statue that sits in Brussels and works as a symbol of the rebellious spirit of the city. His wardrobe counts more than 900 suits. Now that's a fashionista, if anything. Belgium has the world record of functioning without a government. They even
And we're heading to breaking it again because our government talks completely fail every single time. Now, after the election, we still don't have even a fraction of our government. Alexander de Croo.
broke their own record. So, two-time champions, I guess. First time they went 589 days, but the other time they went for 652 days without a federal government. Antwerp is the diamond capital of the world. Forget about all the other cities you've seen in movies. Belgium is the home of diamonds. The city of Antwerp polishes and shapes about 85% of the world's rough diamonds. Ka-ching! Do you like shooting pool? If so, chances are you played with a ball that's originated in Belgium, because this country is the world's leading exporter of billiard balls. Belgium got its name from the Romans. When Caesar came to conquer the northern part of Gaula, he decided to make a difference between the people living there. The tribe that lived in modern-day Belgium was called Belgi, so the Romans called the province Belgica. Later in history, it became Belgium. And here's the speed mode run for you. Castles, courthouse, congested traffic, tramline, industrial revolution, skyscraper, Oostend Mussels, kids having light beer in school, high divorce rate, Tour de France pros, audio cassettes, taxes, flower carpets, Dubry, the world's smallest city, Couverdon, music festivals, and apparently, Belgians love cooking shows. The most famous being
Jeroen
Erwin
Meus.
and his dagelijkse kost. A big thanks to Simeon de Goosum for
Jeroen Meus en zijn dagelijkse kost, yeah. Dit is al zo crazy. When I lived with my dad, with my dad, once there was a guy who came knocking on our door and he opened and he said, "Hello, would you like to purchase Hello Fresh?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't. I like to cook myself and so." But hold on, it has Jeroen Meus. kost, he said. So that means food that Jeroen Meus makes. And he still said no. And then the next door he said the same, and they said, Jeroen Meus. Well, they said didn't said, well, give it to me. They said, well, no, dat wil ik wel hebben hoor. They said, well, give it to me solely because Jeroen Meus made it. That's insane, actually. Jeroen Meus is like some kind of god, I think.
For that fact. So, what's Belgium famous for out in the world? And who's some of their most famous people? Well, to name a few, we have Audrey Hepburn, Jean Claude Van Damme, Gautier, and Stromae. What about Georges Lemaitre, the guy who first proposed what we today know as the Big Bang Theory? No, not the TV series, which for some reason fills up the entire first page when Googling it, but the explanation of how the universe began. Although, speaking of that show, Johnny Galecki, aka Leonard Hofstadter, was born in Belgium but with American parents. This coincidence was too good not to mention. Then we have Adolf Sax, the inventor of the saxophone. Without Mr. Sax, perhaps there would be no jazz. And Gerardus Mercator, the dude who created the very first atlas. And don't forget about the sports people from Belgium. Basically, the entire national football team is internationally known, with star players in pretty much every position. And guys, Max Verstappen, the current best F1 driver, was born in Belgium and holds both Belgian and Dutch nationality. Although, he races under a Dutch license because, as he mentions it, he feels more Dutch. But it's not just people this country is recognized for. The super comic hits, Tintin, Smurfs, and Lucky Luke are made by Belgian cartoonists. And then there's the food. Basically, everywhere you are in the world, if someone wants to make a real kick-ass waffle, they put Belgian in front of it. That's how huge these guys are on waffles. In fact, there's like 20 plus waffles in any given supermarket in the country. And the two most popular waffles, usually found around tourist places, are the Brussels waffle and Liga waffle. So,
actually, fun fact, all these big cities have their own kind of waffle, and they're all different in their own way. Like the Brussels waffle is square and soft, while the Liege or Liège waffle, or the Luikse waffle, they are a bit rounder. Like they're not perfectly square. They're like square, but they have like tinkles and tangles on the side, and they have hard sugar crunch in them. So I like the Liège more than the Brussels one, but every big city has their own waffles. Fun fact.
So, the next time you see someone having a Belgian waffle in the menu, know that this is most likely a Brussels waffle. And yeah, the chocolates. They have the best chocolate in the world. According to themselves, at least. Yes.
And everybody else
I know,
also.
I see all you Swedes raising your eyebrows, mumbling something about Marabu, but this is really some world-class sweets. And then there's the beer. There's thousands of different kinds of beer made in Belgium. And get this, each one of them has its own individual glass for that particular beer. And as it usually is with countries, there's about a million things we didn't mention here. So let us know in the comments about some things or people that absolutely should have been mentioned here. What is there to do in this amazing country? Well, besides indulging in an all-you-can-eat
I have one person I would have mentioned from Belgium is these two kings ago, King Boudewijn. He was like such a big king that when he died, I think he had an accident. So when he died, thousands of people came to our capital from actually not only Belgium but also outside of Belgium. Thousands of people to greet him. That has never been seen before and since. He was called the People's King because he was so loved by the people. It was insane. He had like a huge cult of personality. And for the rest, I don't really say something. Only a fun fact about the flag of Belgium. Again, I know a lot about our flag for some reason. The flag of Belgium was designed by an old woman. Actually, I think the same story goes for America. But when the revolution came, they needed a flag other than the Spanish, Dutch, or Austrian flag to fly at Brussels, at the parliament, at the city parliament. And so they went to an old woman and they said, please, sew us a flag. She was a sewer. And she just took 3 pieces and she sewed them together. And then they gave a reason for the 3 colors, and by accident, apparently, they were the colors of the Duchy of Brabant. The Duchy of Brabant, by the way, also is where the king, his family originated.
marathon of chocolate, waffles, and french fries. There's also some places you definitely should check out. The obvious one being Brussels. This city is very cool and holds a lot of interesting places, such as the EU headquarters, which is just worth checking out just to kind of check it off the list. Then there's more unusual places that's definitely worth seeing. The comic strip route is a celebration of the rich history Brussels has as the home of the comic strip. Here, you'll
13.
find over 50 murals painted with some of the famous comics originating in Belgium. Then there's the Atomium, a giant
You can eat in the highest bowl. You can go and eat dinner, and then there's Mini Europa, which you can go in and see miniatures of all famous European buildings.
iron crystal, magnified about 165 billion times. The Atomium was built in 1958 for the Brussels World's Fair as the flagship construction, and was in fact not thought to remain there after the fair, but it was a good decision.
That's actually always so that always the main thing of the fair is always thought to go away. Same with the Eiffel Tower, it was actually just made to break down, but then it just exists to this day. Also, fun fact: they chose this particular molecule because it has the same amount of balls that our Belgian country had in provinces, so 9. But after that, the one province, Brabant, splits in Flemish and Walloon Brabant, so it isn't right anymore.
Decision to keep it, as this symbol is the most popular tourist attraction in Brussels, with its 600k visitors per year. Moving out of Brussels, there is the city of Ghent, which in itself is one of the coolest cities in Belgium. Besides walking around the city, because you should walk to get the full experience, you should visit Ravenstein, a fairy tale-like castle built as a show of power. However, the events happening in this castle were far from a fairy tale. In fact, the building was nearly torn down thanks to its history of torture. Trying to mention just one more place to visit or do in Belgium is very hard, as the country holds so many must-dos. But if you travel here in spring, more specifically late April into May, you should absolutely go to the town Halle and visit the Blue Forest.
Halle.
The Hallebos, as it's called, looks like an actual dream. With the sun shining through
Very
its
beautiful.
trees and letting its lights hit the millions of blue bells covering the ground. Yeah, this place needs a visit just to do it justice. So, this sums up everything, guys. Have you learned something from this video? At least I learned I need to go back to Belgium as soon as possible. As usual, we'd love to hear what you thought of the video, so let us know in the comments. And if you did enjoy it and want to help the channel grow, please like this video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Stuff like that helps.
All right. Overall, I think this is a very good video. Don't really have a lot to say about it. It was nice. It was correct. And I'm very happy it didn't say in Brussels they speak German. I have one last fun fact before I go. Following the constitution, it is actually mandatory for every citizen of Belgium to learn Dutch and French, but it is only enforced in Brussels. So if you go to Brussels and you speak to somebody in Dutch, they answer you in Dutch. But if you then switch to French, they also switch to French. It's really amazing. So I highly recommend trying this. Normally, everybody you come across in Brussels, for sure the people who work there, can speak both languages. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and that's all for you today. So, yo opinion out.